Well, and as Ms. Galvan is working on that, actually, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Ask everyone to stand where you are and join us in our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. And with that, I will make a motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda as stated. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. McCarthy. Any discussion?
Andy,
All right.
Lori's audio is back. So for roll call, she's on.
All right, excellent. Being no discussion, as with every vote tonight, it's going to be roll call. We'll go in the same order each time. So Mr. Martin is a yes. Mrs. Fishman?
Yes.
Mrs. Sundit?
Yes.
Mrs. Nickerson? Mrs. Nickerson?
Yes.
Thank you. Mrs. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Patch?
Yes.
Mr. Loyer?
Yes.
Thank you. And Mr. Hoyt?
Yes.
All right. With that, we have the community forum slated here. I'll just let everyone know the process, and if anyone, Tom, let me know if anyone has submitted anything yet. But if you are interested in speaking on any topic that's on the agenda, to the board, just put something either in the chat or raise your hand, meaning in the meeting. You can raise your hand, and we'll look for those, and then we will we'll allow that time later if someone isn't able to get it in right away. But I'll just give a couple seconds here to see if anyone bumps it up. I don't see anything in the chat yet, so. All right, we'll take a look at that later just in case, and we'll catch anyone before the end of the meeting. But with that, we'll move into our items for action. Can I get a motion for item D, personnel in its entirety?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McCarthy, second by Mr. Loy. Any discussion on D? All right, Mr. Martin's a yes. Mrs. Fishman? Mrs. Fishman? I didn't hear it. Did anyone?
Yes.
Thank you. Mrs. Sundit?
Yes.
Mrs. Nickerson?
Yes.
Mrs. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Patch?
Yes.
Mr. Loyer?
Since Janine is involved in that, can I vote on that? Do I have to abstain? Did we talk about this before? We have.
Yeah, no, you can vote without any problem, Mike, because really we're not, what Tom is doing with that particular one is actually just advising the board of the name. We actually aren't approving
Okay.
for anything. Pinnacle
Yes.
does that. So,
Aye.
thank you. And Mr. Hoyt?
Yeah.
Thank you. Motion carries. I'll make a motion for item E in its entirety, the consent agenda. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. McCarthy. Any discussion on E? All right, Mr. Martin's a yes. Mrs. Fishman?
Yes.
Mrs. Sundit?
Yes.
Mrs. Nickerson?
Yes.
Mrs. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Patch?
Yes.
Mr. Loyer?
Yes.
And Mr. Hoyt?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. And with that, we go into special presentation to the board tonight. We have spotlight on Paul V. Moore High School, so I'll turn it over to Tom, I guess, for his introductions.
Yep. So I will just quickly introduce Kristen Enright and her team. Kristen, you can take it from here. Can you speak? Can they hear you?
I hope so.
Yep.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm here with my administrative team. So we have assistant principals Chris Salori, Jen O'Malley, and Damon Villeneuve. We're going to be presenting together on just some highlights of Paul V. Moore. We'll talk about a little bit about the virtual instruction that's going on, as well as what we refer to as SEL, which is social emotional learning. Next slide. And we're going to start with Mr. Solori introducing the next slide.
Hi, good evening, everybody. So real quick, there's been a lot of changes since the spring when COVID hit, and huge shout out to our teaching staff and all of our support staff and getting us to where we are today, because in the past, in the spring, we didn't have the live synchronous classes that we do now, and that goes out to, you know, our staff have done a fantastic job at doing the learning on the side, the work after school hours and whatnot. Another thing that is a big difference is students are earning the numerical grades and providing feedback for growth. So in the spring, we did a lot more of feedback-based, but now that we have the synchronous live learning, our staff are using those numerical grades for the report cards. The live instruction, 4 days a week, including 15 minutes of academic help at the end of each class, but also on Wednesdays, we have the Wellness Wednesdays, where our staff are working with our students one-on-one. They're focusing on self-care. They're setting up Zoom meetings, going through homework assignments, going through topics, and really trying to bridge that gap and what we're missing most, and that's it's the connection. It's the student-teacher connection that we so miss, and our staff are doing a fantastic job at doing so. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. O'Malley.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Just piggybacking off of what Chris was saying about the connection piece, I'm going to be highlighting two different ways that we are currently collaborating at the high school. The first one is Canvas discussion collaboration. And this is a discussion that allows for interactive communication between 2 or more people. So we have the students working together, even though they are remote at home. The students can participate in conversation, whether it be a small group, one-on-one, or the entire group. So we asked Amanda Petrie, and she gratefully volunteered to make a video just to give you a little bit of an idea of what it looks like in her classroom. So Tom, if you would please press play, and we'll see what she's doing in her classroom.
So we don't have the volume.
Are not turning their webcams on. I myself have 1 or 2 students consistently turning their webcams on. If I beg and plead.
Is that on yet, Kristen?
Yeah, we can hear the volume, but it's frozen.
No, I stopped it, so it's working.
Yes, it was working. Her lips just weren't, it wasn't synced.
I worry about the lack of social emotional learning through relationship skills. And in addition to that, a huge part of our learning objectives in Global 9 Honors is rigorous discussion-based skills for historical thinking. So to try to overcome some of these hurdles with students lacking in conversation, people have webcams on, I tried out Canvas discussions. And Canvas discussion obviously occurs in Canvas, and students can collaborate via video or written dialogue. So if you look at this sample here, you can see one of my students, this was her initial post, where she was making an argument about her opinion on if the Neolithic Revolution was a positive or negative turning point. And students then replied with either supporting or refuting her claim with evidence. Some suggestions. If we use Canvas discussion going forward again, and I definitely plan on it, I definitely found that modeling appropriate behaviors, I myself showed them a sample, definitely helped. To start slowly, students were more nervous to record responses than I initially anticipated. I thought it would be a 10-minute activity. It turned out they needed multiple takes to feel comfortable in posting their recording. And then if you look, I'm going to go back to this one very quickly. I had their initial posting video forward, I would take away the written dialogue piece and have them only talk to video. So it is as close to interaction as it would in class as it could possibly. And again, just a quick look at the learning objectives for this class that we were able to get through. Definitely rigorous and near what we would do in class. They analyze the outcomes of the Neolithic Revolution source work, both primary and secondary. Students in this collaborative exercise developed an argument and defended it with argument, defended their argument with evidence, and they appropriately and politely supported or refuted the Class B's argument with evidence. So all of this occurred online through a campus discussion. And then I do have some sample responses here real quick. And you can see this is from SpeedGrader. It's a great feature. I'm able to watch each student's initial post, and then I'm able to see their responses. That's it for me, and I hope going forward, more staff will use Canvas discussion. I know I'm
Thanks, Tom. If you can click to the next slide, please.
Hang on one
Hello
second.
and welcome to Stevie High School's parent information video. This video aims to replace the usual parent
Wait a
information
second.
part, but we're unable to have it this year due to
Jen, it's actually Connie's screen sharing. I don't have control.
like our
Okay.
principal Penny Transit,
I've
the
been
executive
working on it.
team, the wellbeing.
X right out of that tab.
Yeah, I'm trying. Not as simple as one would think. I'm trying to get back to your video.
Hi, my name is Amanda Petrie. I teach Global Mind Honors and Global 10 at the high school. I was asked to put together a quick presentation about an activity that I did with my students a few weeks ago. And I used campus discussion to that. Hi, my name is Amanda Petrie.
Bless you, Arena.
Thank you.
Hey, there we go. Next time I'm doing this, somebody should train me first. All right.
Doing great, Connie.
We're doing fine. We got this.
All right. Is that the right girl?
We don't know because you're not sharing the
You're not sharing your screen.
Share.
Oh, I didn't unshare. Did somebody kick me out of the share?
No.
I think I may have said this last time. This thing is good for the board to see, right? This is what not only teachers, but our kids, if you're middle school or high school, going through 4 hours a day, 4 days a week.
No, I could say, Andy, that's not true. They're way better than this. So
That's true. That's true.
Thank you, Mr. Colby.
Troubleshoot really, really well now. You wouldn't even know if there was something that was happening. It's pretty awesome to watch. All right, moving forward, the other way that we're going to present tonight on collaboration is Flipgrid Interaction. And Flipgrid, just basically, if you don't know anything about it, allows students to find their voices, share their voices, and respect the diverse voices of others. It's a really great opportunity for them to be creative and share their point of view in a different way. Students build and strengthen their social learning communities, and they discuss their ideas and experiences with their peers. We actually use this as adults, the administrators and teachers at the end of last spring, just to say hi to the kids and send them well wishes. So it's nice to see the teachers now using that after we modeled that at our initial closure last year. So once again, I have Amanda Petrie here, who's going to be sharing how she uses this in the classroom.
Hi there. I have one more strategy to show you that I get a little bit more face-to-face interaction with students, see their faces, hear their voices, and get them to see and hear, more importantly, from each other. I'm sure you've heard of Flipgrid, but I found some new uses for it. The students had a choice of activity where they were to take on one modern day job, one of three, a podcast author, a graphic designer, or a songwriter. And students uploaded their choice of activity and were given a set of requirements where they had to explain it or take on the role of that modern day interpreted that differently, and their choices all vary. For example, this student.
Hello, everybody. This is the Debunking History podcast with your host, Tyler Penrod. In this podcast session, I will be using the vocabulary hunter-gatherer.
So this student decided to do a podcast. This student.
The Neolithic Revolution was a positive turning point in the economic world where the farmer and crops in shape of how to earn. My next design was on a mug, and it says, "Never go nomadic."
So students were able to have a choice of activity, but were able to interact and see each other and present them differently than if submitted them or isolated in their work. Cool thing, once they're all submitted, I will have them go into class and they can comment on each other's work via video, or they can submit a written comment. So again, getting off just using the chat feature and just sending it word in an isolated way, students can now do a little bit more collaborative work, which is always the goal going forward, especially in this virtual environment. Thank you.
So we just want to send a big thank you to Amanda for taking the time out of her day for doing that for us. And I'm going to pass the time now to Kristen Enright.
Thanks, Jen. I'm just going to go ahead while oh, never mind. She's already back.
It's hard to flip it. I'm sorry. Hang on one second.
No problem. I can talk while we're waiting for the screen share to present. So like you have heard with Amanda talking, we're trying to increase ways for student collaboration, via the remote learning and through Canvas Conference. So, we saw an example of the Canvas discussion board and Flipgrid. And again, those are all ways for students to be able to collaborate with each other and the teacher, even though they're remote. So to continue on with that, we're always looking for student feedback and the features that we're using and the new technology that we're doing. What do kids think of them? And, do we continue or do we have some planned abandonment? And so this next slide, it really shows how Megan Rothrock, one of our Spanish teachers, she created a reflection document after the first marking period. And she asked her students, after these first 10 weeks, what's the hardest and most challenging thing about this course? And we've highlighted a few of their answers. One was talking about, the fact that after having all summer off, I think it could be helpful to frequently review what we did in the past. Another one talked about the fact that finding the homework at first on Canvas was really challenging, and they liked how she organized her assignments, and now it's very simple because she uses emojis. So they know to look for a certain emoji next to the assignment, and they know, oh, that's the homework emoji. This is how Paul V. Moore's been working all school year. Once a teacher finds something that works and kids say it's great, she shares it with the rest of the staff. So as soon as we learned about these emojis you can put into Canvas, the rest of the staff started getting on board. And that's what we've noticed throughout the school years. Really, staff are helping each other and navigating through this and really working together to piggyback off of kids' responses and what they like. So another one said, I want to get better at, doing things on time and listening. That's the hardest part, is paying attention. And another kid said, just being myself and being organized is challenging. So, they're realistic about what they know they can do and struggle with. On the next slide, she asked another question about, what's the best things about the course? And they talked about this course keeps you in check. It's easygoing. They think she's easygoing and help them understand things. The notes have been their favorite thing, which is kind of shocking to hear that notes are their favorite, which encourages us. So at the beginning of the year, we had 1,150 folders out on a table in the cafeteria, and teachers brought down supplies that they think the kids might need from September to January. Then we're going to do another one in January. And some of the teachers prepped note packets because we knew that we'd be remote, and they thought, what, every so often it really helps to have a piece of paper in front of you and something to write with while you're learning online. So the teachers enjoyed that, and we thought that was a plus. And of course the games, that really helps them. They like it, and they encourage the games. Another part of her reflection was just asking basically out of here's all the activities I use, what do you enjoy? And, you know, they highlighted quizzes and GimKit. And again, the taking note packets, 63% of them like that as well. So providing feedback from kids is really what it's all about, and making modifications based on what they're saying is working is what we've been doing. And Damon's gonna talk a little bit about the social emotional learning side.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for your time this evening. Of course, one of the biggest areas that we're looking at, of course, during the pandemic is social emotional learning. Because without the social emotional connection with our students, we know that learning's not going to happen. So our teachers are doing a fantastic job of doing attendance questions at the very beginning of their classes. And what they're doing is they're asking questions such as, what did you do this weekend? Or now that we're coming into the holiday time, if you were to give a donation, who would you give it to? So really trying to connect with the kids. And one of the real popular questions is right here is, you'll see the emojis. They'll ask you, how are you feeling today? And one of the great things about our teachers is that with the platforms that they're using, there could be a private chat feature. So what they could tell the students, say, in the chat feature, go ahead and put the number of the emotion that you're feeling. So the chat feature would come up and say, Mr. Colabufo would put in number 1, he's happy, everything's awesome, everything's going very well. Or someone could put in a number 10, and number 10 could go privately right to the teacher. So there could be a feeling of depression or anxiety. And the good thing about that is that knowing that privately is that that teacher could reach out to that student after class, or when they have a planning period, or they could even reach out to one of us as the administrators, and we could do a check-in with the student to be sure that everything is okay at home. Are they struggling with classes? What's their anxiety about? I see that Mr. Patch just put in number 6. So Mr. Patch is feeling pretty cool right now. Wearing some sunglasses outside, even though there's no sun, but we appreciate that. Mr. Martin is number 4. All right, so he's feeling a little goofy today. So those are the simple ways that our teachers are reaching our students to talk about those social emotional aspects. On the next slide is just another way. You could look at these and you could say, all right, pick a number. Which one are you feeling right now as well? And so, again, our teachers are doing a fantastic job of reaching out and just connecting with our students in a world right now where connection is really difficult when we're sitting behind screens. So if we want to scroll on, we know that, of course, sports activities and clubs are one way always to keep our students connected. And over this past fall, we were able to have boys and girls varsity and JV soccer, cross country, girls varsity tennis, girls varsity gymnastics, boys varsity golf, and field band. And we know that if students are connected with a sport or even a club, which is on the next page, we know that their attendance is going to be higher. It's going to drive their grades to be higher. It also gives the teachers and the students something to talk about as again, to make those connections that are very, very important when it comes to social and emotional learning, or social emotional engagement, as we say. So with all of that being said, I'm going to pass the torch back over to Mrs. Enright.
So I have more of the obvious slides. You know, social emotional learning is happening all the time in the counseling office. We just want to make sure you're aware that it's all throughout the entire building. But for instance, our counseling center, we have our social worker and social worker assistant who created a Bitmoji classroom, which we have many students visiting throughout the day, and they put their resources within that classroom. They also created a video with our school psychs and counselors for coping with COVID-19 and distance learning. The struggle is real. They put together multi-tiered systems of support in addition to that. So again, there's a lot we do. We do home visits, mentor program, counseling sessions. We have check-in connects that happen on a regular basis, as well as the traditional conferences. On the next slide, it just continues to show you what more we offer. On the academic end, we recognize that students need a little bit more academic support. And so therefore, not just on Wednesdays and not just the 15 minutes at the end of each class, but if they have a study hall built into their schedule or some other time where they'd like some support with mainly their executive functioning skills, organizing, where do I start? How do I prioritize my work? We have staff that we run it through the counseling office, but we have staff that support students in that way, one-on-one or in small group. In addition, we do have referrals that we started with the outreach committee where any parent, student, or staff member can fill out a referral if they are concerned about a child It's not an immediate concern of self-harm, but a concern of, so-and-so hasn't shown up in the last couple of days and they're usually to class. So can someone check in on them? So someone is checking that referral for them on a daily basis. The Career Center is still up and running, and we have a lot of college and military visits that students can sign up for. We do this through a Canvas classroom. That's what the kids are used to. That's the platform they're on. So we didn't want to pull them away from that and have them go to somewhere else. So we created a class of, and we have 2024, 2023. So we get all the freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and seniors each have a Canvas page. We advertise there, and we are also having our career discussions and panelists there as well. So you can see like military, pilot, construction trades, social worker and counseling. So there's a bunch of different discussions that are still continuing on. And I'll pass it over to Damon again.
All right, and although we're not in the buildings, we still feel that character education is a huge part of what we do here, not only at Paul V. Moore High School, but the entire district. And one of the great things that we did so far this year is that, yes, normally character ed was a month-to-month thing, but being how everything is happening, we decided to make it a marking period. And so what we did is we created a Google form and we sent it out to the teachers and say, let us know who's doing a great job, because as the amount of negativity that we see in the news and things, and sometimes we hear, we want to highlight the positives that are happening, because you know what, there's a tremendous amount of positives happening in our high school. So this is a sample of a letter. So let me get back. The Google form was set out to the teachers, and we had over 100 responses in 2 days for character education awards, as we called them. So what it looked like this year, or this marking period, was that we sent an individualized letter about what the student did. Each teacher wrote about something specific that the student did. So the student was informed of everything that they did well in the class. It was submitted by a particular teacher, and we just wanted to thank them. So each student got a letter, and up in the right-hand corner, you can see the world is a better place because of you. That was a small little card, a little token of appreciation to let them know that what they are doing really makes a difference to the teachers, because it helps them be more positive as well. So it was a twofold. It makes the students happy, it makes the teachers happy, and it just makes the community a more positive place to be. So that's something that we worked on. We're going to do it again for marking periods 2, 3, and 4. And as I said, there was over 100 responses in 2 days. So it was a great problem to have. And if we want to move on, and one of our ways on Wednesdays for a little bit of communication is, yes, you'll see my face on both of those videos. We do a weekly video update to keep all stakeholders informed about what's happening, whether it's fundraisers, whether it's our student of the month, knowing that attendance matters, any meetings that are coming up for any clubs. So it's our 1 day a week out on Wednesday, just to let everyone know what's going on in the school. And then if you look to the right-hand side, Let's Get Cooking with Villeneuve. It's just a video put out by myself, cooking at home, real easy recipes that hopefully gets kids involved cooking, so parents don't have to do it all the time. And I end with the tagline, if you do the cooking, then you don't have to do the dishes. So it's just one of those little social emotional videos that we're just trying to keep this a positive light, and hopefully getting people involved with some positive things happening at home.
And last but not least, we just want to remind people that although much has changed, since the spring, some things have stayed the same. We're still a caring and supportive staff, that we want everyone to know that we're here for them, that they're always going to be a part of the Central Square family, and that we celebrate their accomplishments. So social emotional learning is at the forefront. And I think our instruction is only improving as days go on. And again, we really want student feedback, and we reflect every day and grow. So we thank all the teachers for their input, creating videos, giving us some of their documents to use on here. And nothing would be accomplished without my administrative team. So I appreciate all 3 assistant principals. They're doing an amazing job, and they're very supportive of everything we're doing. They're coming up with new ideas all the time.
Kristen, I just want to say before the board chimes in that I've shared a lot of emails with the board of parents that, especially the parents that in the summer would express their frustrations in emails or phone calls to me. Usually a lot of them in emails. where they're frustrated, but now they're saying, given the status of a lot of the school districts that have high school in-person and learning and middle school in-person learning, and just all of the frequent shutdowns and the quarantines that result in just hundreds of kids, being quarantined and their families having to, figure all of that out, that they've now said that the teachers have just done a phenomenal job quickly getting a solid grasp of the technology. So where we had our glitches today in technology and a little bit of the sound quality, the good news is that's not how it sounds when the students see it. Now, I was kind of texting Connie back and forth that the way we heard it from the taped one is different than what the teacher does going out. And I think that's important. But it's just a testament to all the hard work you guys have put in. I can't say it enough. Damon, the parents that have reached out to me and emailed me, and again, I want the board to see those emails too, because God only knows the emails that I'm sure they see on a regular basis from parents that are frustrated with COVID. But how many parents watch the Cooking with Villeneuve, and they watch it with their whole family. And that's like a sense of normalcy for them. So you have really, really gone above and beyond to really put yourself out there. Solari, O'Malley, and Kristen Enray, I can't thank you enough for making the connections that you have made with the students on a regular basis. And I'm so appreciative to that.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I want to start just by saying, first of all, because it's difficult on video. No, earlier when I made my comment about our kids experiencing this 4 days a week, I didn't mean the glitches. I meant literally, this is not the same as being in person, right? So all of you did phenomenal, but I think everyone on the board would say it's not the same as being there and being able to read emotions, and there's something about physical presence. So a single board meeting twice a month is tough enough. Our kids and our teachers that are doing this all the time, again, just kudos to them. My wife's a teacher in a different district. It's stressful enough, and she has some kids in person. And so I can't thank all of you that presented enough for all the work that you're doing. There is not a perfect plan out there, and but I would stack ours, and I would stack our staff and what you guys have done against anyone, and I know you come out on top. So just really appreciate it, and I think it's fantastic. So with that, I'll open it up to the board for comments.
I'd like to jump on, Andy, and just reiterate what you said. Everybody has gone above and beyond to, care for their classrooms and the kids, and, I don't know that we could ask much more of them. Everybody's doing a fantastic job. Tom, all your administration, kudos to all of you for doing what you're doing and keeping everybody somewhat happy. There's always those that are not, but I think 90% of our district is just, amazed at how everybody has banded together and made all this happen.
I appreciate that, Lori, and I think it's important that everybody knows that out of the 49 cases, and I say 49, but this meeting's going on, I'm dealing with 2 other ones right now in the past hour with the health department. Probably shouldn't say that out loud, but I've been dealing with that on my phone. Not that I wasn't listening to the board meeting, but I'm also dealing with work stuff. But as of right now, it's 49 total cases. The majority of our cases are all remote students. So the high school and middle school make up about 57% out of the 49 total student and staff cases. And that 55% is at the high school and middle school. So again, it's one of those things where the administrative team came together over the summer and said, what is going to be the best plan to keep our consistency and keep everything going, and yet still allow for students to have the extracurricular activities, the sports, the band, and keep it running as opposed to getting it shut down all the time. So again, I can't speak highly enough of the supportive board, to the teachers who are the ones standing in the classrooms making this happen, and for the entire district to have the foresight to say, if we're going to do this, let's look at high school and middle school and not have those teachers working in both worlds with all the students on their caseloads where they have to provide the 990 hours of instructional time. And again, I say this for anybody new that's watching this, and then I will stop. for at least this week. But the bottom line is, if our teachers in our high school and middle school were to provide students with just 1 day of in-person learning each, that would require our teachers to spend 4 full days from contractual start, contractual end, just doing in-person learning with those students, again, to give everyone just 1 day of in-person learning. That's why, and I'm not going to name other school districts, but when I ask, how are you doing the virtual part of it? And I ask parents, because again, I live in one of those other districts, it's pretty much non-existent. So what our teachers are doing, providing such high quality lessons remotely to the level that they are, and then for our elementary teachers to live in both worlds, is absolutely spectacular. I echo Andy Martin. I do put our plan against anybody else's plan. And the fact that our teachers and our administrators have been able to pull this off is just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Any other feedback on the presentation before we move on?
My only comment is, you know, I've said it 1,000 times, but I'll continue to hammer it home. We truly are making the best of a really, really, really lousy situation.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I hate to keep hitting on that, but I think people got to realize that it's, you know, the best laid plan. It's a tough, very difficult, challenging situation that we hopefully will never, ever, ever be in front of again.
Yeah.
Thanks,
And
Tim.
Damon, I'm a little disappointed you didn't tell us to wash our hands before you started, but that's all right.
He wanted to play a joke, and I said, I don't know how many board members are watching your video. So you just made his day that you watch it.
I was actually going to start out my segment. Welcome, Board of Education, to another. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the wrong segment altogether.
I have watched them, to be very candid.
Hey, a pretty specific question, and this is for, I mean, all of the admin here but particularly from the high school, because you presented, is there anything that we can do? You know, we're obviously all, and I'm sure you're more so than even the board, but very aware of how stressful this is on our staff. So is there anything that we can do to better equip and better support them? Because, you know, as we all know, this could be going on for as far into the future as we can see. So what can we do to help support there?
Oh, that's
yeah,
great.
and that doesn't require an immediate response. It's one of those things that, yeah, feel free to say something, but feel free to just send an email or through Tom, whatever. Just let us know, because I see it on my family members that are teachers, so I know how stressful it is.
I think, Andy, they appreciate just your backing and the cabinet members' backing, and, you know, knowing that, like, us as admin, if they have a concern or a concerned parent, or if they have a concern with a student, like, we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna come up with a plan, even if we have to individualize 1,100 plans for every kid. You know, just knowing that everyone is supported and allows for some creativity, some flexibility. You know, that's what they appreciate. We're not pigeonholing them into certain things.
And Kristen, I'll say this, Andy, there's not literally a day goes by that I don't walk, whether I'm walking down the hallway to go to microwave my lunch, to go to the bathroom, or to get a drink of water. A staff member will say, Tom, thank you. It's unlike the elementary when our caseloads are 200, 150 kids. Thank you for not having us living in both worlds, because we can just be in our bubble, focus on delivering high quality instruction, and then not jump into in-person and then have to be quarantined and then have those kids quarantined and whatnot. So again, it's like what Tim McCarthy said. And Andy, you said it earlier. We all wish we could have all those kids back in the classroom. We all wish that this can go back 1.5 years ago, when we can pack in to our auditorium and our athletic arenas and our classrooms and seeing those kids in there. We are absolutely, when I say we, again, it starts with the teachers in the front of the classroom. We are making the absolute best of a horrible situation.
All right, well, I'll end with a bad analogy that I heard someone say the other day, and I think it's good, which is, you know, we've all heard you get lemons, you make lemonade, and someone said, but in this situation, teachers are taking manure and making lemonade out of it. And I really think that's true. Like, it is a lousy situation, and it's incredible what you're doing. So great presentation. Thanks for doing it, and thanks for spending your time with us tonight. All right, with that, we're going to move on to reports, and we open it up for basically anything from the board. So any topics that anyone would want to bring up from the board?
I don't have anything, Andy.
All right. Thank you. Mrs. Fishman, anything from you? No. All right. Two quick things I wanted to point out. One is just letting the board know, because we've talked about this in the past and in this virtual world, I don't want it to be missed that, you know, things like DECA are still happening. So I am able again this year to volunteer to be a judge for the regional DECA competition. They are doing it virtually. So this week, actually, all the kids are recording their presentations, and then we'll get an alert and yeah, we'll judge the presentations. And so it is a great thing. If you ever get the opportunity in the future to do it, highly encourage you to do it. This year, I am going to somehow give them feedback on business services marketing. So, and I'll let you know how that goes and how any of our students that are able to participate do with that. And then the other thing is similar to what we've already talked about, which is just the idea that whether it's the high school or all the schools, and I think we've all done a good job of this as a board, and I don't want the staff to get the wrong impression. I frankly do not get a lot of one-on-one conversations with parents or anyone else complaining about, you know, the plan or what's going on. You see a lot of it on social media. You see a lot of it from keyboard warriors, but I don't give a lot of credence to that. I will simply say that when I'm at the local grocery store or the gas station or whatever, and someone says something, it is absolutely positive in just how thankful they are. And I actually had someone the other day say that, boy, they may have complained about education before and they didn't realize how important it was for their kids. So if nothing else, that may be a good thing coming out of this. More people will understand just how important it is what all of you do. So
Totally agree with you, Andy.
yeah, it's good stuff. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Colabufo for the superintendent's report.
Yeah, so just quickly staying on the whole COVID numbers and whatnot, and this changes every day as we get more cases. But so far, just students speaking across the district, 24 of them, the students that had tested positive, were always remote, never in our buildings. And 9 of them were actually in our buildings. Out of those 9, not all of them required contact tracing. And just so everybody understands the way this works, whether it's tonight at 7 or 8 o'clock, I'll get a call from the health department and we start working those cases out, or if it's over the weekends. We seem to be very busy with this, and I talked to both health departments, Onondaga and Oswego County, over the weekends. And basically, the way that it works is this. I get a call from a teacher. I get a call on my work cell. I gave that out to everybody, from a parent saying, my kid, Mr. Calbufo, I'm just got my kid tested positive. It's in this school or that school, this grade level, this teacher. The health department probably doesn't have the results yet. I said, I'll be right back with you. Call the health department. They haven't got the results yet. But then they say, okay, Tom, can you put that in the portal, our portal? Can you put that in the Onondaga County Health Portal, or there's a spreadsheet for Oswego County? I need all the kids in that classroom. If that kid was on the bus, I need all the kids that were on that bus, where they sit, the duration of how long they've been on the bus, the whole 9 yards. We quickly do all of that. The health department then says, okay, there's no way we're going to be able to get to these people right now because there's thousands of these calls that they're making and double it in Onondaga County. So what they say is they need to be quarantined. They need to be quarantined, even though it might be the weekend, but we don't want them going to a grandparent's house and whatnot. You need to call them. So I do exactly what they say. I call them and say, you are being quarantined until you hear from the health department. They probably will quarantine the whole class, and I have these conversations. Now what I have done, I have tasked our principals are making those calls, right along with the nurses. But the principals, now that's really seemed to help a lot, and they've been wonderful. Big shout out to the last weekend. We had Karen Reeve making a lot of parent phone calls, and she took care of it while I was working on other cases. But basically, it's 48 hours from the onset of symptoms. So I'll make up a girl, Sally Johnson. Sally Johnson tests positive. Her symptoms started on Friday. So then what we do is we say, okay, the health department will say, Friday the symptoms started, go back 48 hours. That's Friday, it's Thursday, and it's Wednesday. wherever that kid was engaged, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we've got to quarantine, we've got to do contact tracing. Luckily, there have been a good number of them where the student just was not in, or might have already been quarantined because of a family member and whatnot. The only ones that I blast out to all family, like to all parents and all staff, are the ones where there was an actual exposure. There have been many more positive cases, but it could be from a department, let's say it's maintenance, or let's say it's just a different department, and they were never in. So they were not in school at work during that 48-hour period. So it's not like we're hiding those cases, but there's no need to confuse parents with just every day they see more cases. They need to know, was that kid in a school during that time or on the bus? So I don't want people to think that we're hiding anything. I can't tell you right now how many of these letters I've sent out to all parents and guardians. It could be in Brewerton. I'm still showing it to everybody. Why do I do that? We have Baskell, we have other things, YMCA. I want to just make sure we're covering all of our bases. We're not giving students names. And at the end of the day, there's the New York State report card that they can click on that anyway, that literally delineates by the school. So again, our teachers have been great. I just changed one aspect. I had the teachers wear, all staff, whenever they're in the room with somebody else. Now, the staff are wearing masks at all times. There's a little caveat to that. If the teacher has to provide instruction for the kids remotely and in their classroom, and they're far enough away, for that part, they pull it down, they would give it. We're ordering a ton of masks, regular masks, cloth masks, but then have the plastic part so that the younger student speech and reading teachers and in our special ed foundations classes, the kids would be able to actually see the mouth of their teacher. But we're doing that because in the last 3 weeks, there have been far more cases of staff members having being positive than students. So in conversations I had with Lynn Dowler, we talked again, there were more positive staff members this weekend. Lynn and I spoke, and it was time to put that out, and I agreed. And the staff have been responsive, because at the end of the day, there's not a staff member that wants to unknowingly, pass something on that they may not even realize that they have if they're asymptomatic or very small symptoms. So for the COVID standpoint of it, for the transparency standpoint of it, any parent at any time can call the health department. They can ask questions. I do not do contact tracing. None of our staff members do contact tracing. I know some people were thinking we were doing that. Absolutely not. What we do is we get all that information quickly to the health department. But the reality is, if we didn't make those calls to those parents for the health department, it would take 4, 5, 6, or in some cases 9 days before the health department can finally dig out from all their cases and call those people. So at that point, there would be a lot of angry parents and a lot of angry staff members that would wonder why the kids that were in said classroom were not quarantined until basically their quarantine was over. So we don't do the quarantining. We take our calls from our director from the health department, who say, yes, Tom, if that's the situation, that's the room, this kid just tested positive. We just have about 300 other people cases to work out before this one. So please go ahead and make those calls. So I can tell you right now, I always say kudos to the teachers for what they're doing in the classroom. Massive kudos to the principals, because I'm literally calling them through the night and on the weekends to put these rosters together and to get them as quick as we can to the health department. All right, so that ends my COVID part. I want to give a shout out. Okay, so Salt City Athletic Conference released its 2020 League All-Stars. Empire State Player of the Year was Emma Herman. First team students were Cora Cohane and Emma Herman and Ryan Colton. Second team students were Samantha Haley, Allison Bateson, and Emma Dempsey. Great job to all. The following teams qualified for the Fall Scholar Athlete Award. Great job. Those that achieved an average of 90% for their GPA or higher on your team will receive their pin at the same time that they receive their varsity season award. Boys cross country, cumulative average of a 90.8 average. Boys golf, 90.04. Boys soccer, 94.28.
Wow.
Girls cross country had an average of 96.40. Girls soccer with another amazing year, 96.85. Girls tennis, 95.15. So again, we've always talked about when you're involved in sports, you're involved in clubs, these students right here are so structured, and they just bring great pride to the Red Hawk community. Just to give a quick update, we are in the process right now. John Pierce has been working very hard with Jim Dranzak and with Arena Gershman's team. We are in the process of doing the exact same thing that we did for the fall sports transportation survey, but this one's going to be for the winter. And everybody should know, because I put it out multiple times, the governor has approved low risk winter sports to start December 14. For us, that is bowling and rifle. And bowling will be done virtually the same way that rifle is. So that basically means they'll be at the bowling alley, they'll be spread out, they won't be playing against another team in person, their scores will go in virtually and compare that way. Part of the survey it'll ask the parents, are you planning on having, is your child planning on playing the low risk sports? There they are. If so, and then it will have the 5 drop-off points, very similar to the pick up and drop-off points that we had in the fall. And then the next part is going to say, if the governor allows for high risk sports in the winter, he hasn't set that date yet, but we're assuming that it's probably going to start in January. Would you, and then again, same thing. We want to know how many buses that we need, because obviously John Pierce does an amazing job building all those bus runs. And so John Pierce and Jim Dranzak have worked extremely well together. And shout out to Stephanie Hall. They're the assistant for Dranzak. They do a wonderful job. And while I'm on that, shout out to Yolanda Bertrand for doing an amazing job as the assistant transportation director. So last little tidbit here, we are starting our hot meals. They are starting Monday the 14th. There may be a little bit delay for those students that we bring in the middle school, but Dave Bartholomew is doing a great job. And again, like any other department, there are times that there'll be people in that department that will get quarantined. And then when they come back, we're just doing everything we can to keep all of our departments and all of our staff able to be able to have the level of in-person that we're currently having. That wraps up my superintendent report, Andy.
All right. Any questions or comments for Tom on the report? All right. Thank you, Mr. Colabufo. We'll move into items for action and discussion. We'll take these one at a time because we have to. Can I get a motion for item H1, approval of the first reading of proposed district policies?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McCarthy, second by Mr. Loyer. And just a reminder, this is the first reading. So at our next meeting, which is December 21st, should it be approved both times, then they'll become our policies. Any discussion? Hey, Kenny Fishman. I think these are, I think there's only 2, right? Aaron, 2 policies that are in this one? Yeah. All right. Being no discussion, Mr. Martin is a yes. Mrs. Fishman?
Yes.
Mrs. Sunday?
Yes.
Mrs. Nickerson?
Yes.
Mrs. Wood?
Yes.
McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Pat?
Yes.
Mr. Loyer?
Yes.
And Mr. Hoyt?
Yes.
All right. Item H2, we won't do the motion or second just yet. Let me read the resolution. Yeah, and then we'll do that. So let me read this resolution. And by doing this, I'm making the motion and then I'll ask for the second. So a resolution authorizing commencement of vaping litigation. Whereas in recent years, the use and abuse of e-cigarettes and vaping devices has increased dramatically among high school and middle school students, leading to significant risks of addiction and potentially life-threatening respiratory ailments. And whereas makers of e-cigarettes, including Juul Labs Incorporated, have engaged in marketing practices that have targeted children, thereby endangering the health of millions of children who have become addicted to nicotine and nicotine products. Whereas the use of e-cigarettes and vaping devices by students has and or likely will cause the Central Square School District to incur costs in the form of staff time, disciplinary proceedings, and other costs, with the expectation that these costs will only increase unless and until student use of these devices decreases and stops. Whereas the Central Square School District Board of Education has been invited to join a nationwide lawsuit by school districts against Juul Labs, the largest seller of e-cigarettes in the United States, and Altria Group Incorporated, formerly known as Philip Morris Companies Incorporated. And whereas the Central Square School District Board of Education wishes to join this lawsuit to discourage the proliferation of e-cigarettes and the marketing of e-cigarettes to children and seek compensation for harm caused to the district due to e-cigarette use. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Central Square School District Board of Education hereby resolves that 1, to appoint the law firms of Bonchenek and King PLLC and the France Law Group APLC to provide legal services in connection with pursuing claims for damages associated with the Juul electronic cigarette litigation against Juul Labs and others consistent with the recitals above. 2, to approve the contract for such legal services. And 3, to authorize the superintendent to take all steps necessary to become an active co-plaintiff to litigation filed on behalf of school districts by Bonchenek and King and the France Law Group. Should we vote on this, it will be adopted the 7th day of December 2020. So with that, I make the motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Loy, and we'll open it up for discussion. All right. Being none, roll call vote. Mr. Martin is a yes. Mrs. Fishman?
Yes.
Mrs. Sundit?
Yes.
Mrs. Nickerson?
Yes.
Mrs. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
I'm going to abstain from this one.
Thank you. Mr. Patch?
Yes.
Mr. Loyer?
Yes.
And Mr. Hoyt?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. So 8 yeses, no one against, and 1 abstention. So Pearl will do what she needs to do. Pearl, let me know if you need anything else on that. All right, moving on to H3, I'll make a motion to approval of the single audit report. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. McCarthy, I think. I'm not sure. Any discussion?
Respected your elders, huh?
Mr. Martin's a yes. Mrs. Fishman?
Yes.
Mrs. Sundit?
Yes.
Mrs. Nickerson?
Yes.
Mrs. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Patch?
Yes.
Mr. Loyer?
Yes.
And Mr. Hoyt?
Yes.
All right. Can I get a motion for item H4, approval of the extra classroom activity funds financial report?
I'll make the
I'll
motion.
make a motion.
Second.
Second by McCarthy, motion by McCarthy. I believe the second was Mrs. Wood.
I was there.
Yep. Mrs. Wood was the second. She beat you, Mr. Loyer. Any discussion on H4? All right. Mr. Martin's a yes. Mrs. Fishman?
Yes.
Mrs. Sundit?
Yes.
Mrs. Nickerson? Mrs. Nickerson?
Yes.
Mrs. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Patch?
Yes.
Mr. Loyer?
Yes.
And Mr. Hoyt?
Yes.
All right, and I'll make a motion to approve item H5, which is the management response to item H4. Can I get a second?
Second.
I'm going to give that one to Loyer. I think it was a dead heat. So, any discussion? Mr. Martin's a yes. Mrs. Fishman?
Yes.
Mrs. Sundit?
Yes.
Mrs. Nickerson?
Yes.
Mrs. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Patch?
Yes.
Mr. Loyer?
Yes.
And Mr. Hoyt?
Yes.
All right, before I make this next motion, I want to remind the board members, Pearl sent 2 links. The second link is to the executive session. It's really important that we all, once we close this meeting, that we're going to leave this meeting and only the board members are going to go into that other link. I'll give everyone about 3 minutes, so don't feel like you have to rush right over, a little bit of a break. But for the public, I want to make sure they understand, being a virtual meeting, we're going to go into an executive session after we make this motion. There will not be action to follow. but then we won't obviously be coming back to a public meeting. So we will be closing our public meeting here, Pearl. We're just going to play this one as we go. So we're going to move to executive session and close the public meeting here at the same time. And then Pearl, there won't be any notes from the executive session for you. So with that, I make a motion that the Central Square School District Board of Education go into executive session to discuss the superintendent's contract with no action to follow. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Loyer. Any discussion? Tom, are you good if I give a little blurb on this just to perhaps put some people at ease?
Yeah, and before you do, there should be no problems technology-wise because it's not going to be a webinar. It's going to be the old ways that we did it, so it should be no issues.
Perfect. So we are going into executive session to discuss the possibility of opening up the superintendent's contract. It's not up until January of 2024. We're going to discuss whether or not to open it up and possibly extend early. I want to make sure that there wasn't some public angst about, oh, or maybe they're looking to make a superintendent move or something. That's not it. We don't know yet if we're going to do anything, but we're just going to discuss it. And so that's what we're doing. So any other discussion before we vote on that? All right. Mr. Martin is a yes. Mrs. Fishman?
Yes.
Mrs. Sundit?
Yes.
Mrs. Nickerson?
Yes.
Mrs. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Patch?
Yes.
Mr. Loyer?
Yes.
And Mr. Hoyt?
Yes.
All right. We will join that in a couple minutes. Thanks everyone for attending. Thanks to Tom and cabinet and staff for all your work. And we will see everyone in 2 weeks, if not before. Have a good night.
Hey.
All right, guys.